Oh, 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 thank God I'm back. I saw it, guys. I saw it, okay? I wanted to see what the year 2020 was going to be like, so I used my time machine, which is totally not a Power Ranger morpher from in space, and I just went ahead just a couple of months into 2020. It's all turtles, guys. I don't know why, I don't know how, but somehow turtles have just taken over the planet. I don't get it, but apparently it's going to happen, so prepare yourself for the turtle apocalypse, I suppose. Okay, I think I'm alright. I'm sorry, I freaked out there for a little bit. In all honesty, the world being taken over by turtles, I mean, that can kind of only improve things, right? I mean, there's a lot worse things that could have happened, alright? But the world being taken over by self-aware turtles, I'm okay with that. And by the way, I did check, and One Piece does continue into 2020. It's just that the Straw Hat crew and all the characters are replaced with turtles. But hey, I would still read that, wouldn't you? Alright, so today's video, we're going to be talking about the greatest time traveler in the world of One Piece, because time travel is just a thing that exists in One Piece now. You would have told me that 5 years ago, I would have been like, I wouldn't have went 100% on board with that. I would have been like, it's One Piece, it could happen, but I wouldn't be like, I don't know if we need to get time travel involved. But no, Oda needed to get time travel involved. We're talking about Lady Toki today, also known as Toki Amasuki, who that's her maiden name that we find out in the last chapter, before she married Odin and became Toki Kozuki. Although, as I said in the review, Amasuki and Kozuki share very similar kanji, and there's definitely a connection between Toki and Wano. It's not that, like, Toki originated from some far-off land 800 years ago, and just over the course of skipping time using her time powers. I'm going to be saying time and Toki a lot in this video, so just get ready for it. Toki is just Japanese for time. But no, she didn't come up from some faraway land and made her way to Wano by accident. No, from what we get from the last chapter, she originated from Wano, and just by her garb and the way she looks and everything, and she knows about Wano, which is an isolated country to begin with, so she's definitely from Wano. And then she skipped time several centuries, about 800 years or so, and then when she arrived in the time of Odin and, Whitebeard in his prime and everything, she really wants to get back to Wano for some undisclosed reason that we do not know, okay? So we'll be talking about this today. Also, at the end of the last chapter, she just mentions, just offhandedly, that she's 26 years old at the time of this flashback, and that she was born 800 years ago. Now, keep in mind, this was 30 years before the storyline in the present, so that means that she might have been rounding up or down, she might have not have been exact, but around 830 years ago was when she was born, okay? Now, we don't know exactly how old she was when she first left Wano 800-something years ago because of the nature of her power. The time fruit, just a quick refresher, seems to give the person just one ability, and that's the ability to send either themselves or others into the future, and they can specify how far into the future they want to go. She can probably send people into the future by only a couple of minutes or hours if she so chooses, or she could send people into the future by several, years, decades, centuries, doesn't really matter. I'm curious if there is an upper limit with the time fruit, if she could send somebody like 3 million years into the future, or like, I will send you 5 billion years into the future when the Earth is completely destroyed by the sun and you just appear in the middle of the void of space and just... And like it's an instant kill. Some people are saying the time fruit doesn't really have a lot of applications in battle. Yeah, well, if there's a limit with the time you can send, I guess there would be a limits there, but if there's no limit, I'm sending you 10 billion years into the future, poof, and you just pop and you're just done, right? Okay? Or you could send yourself into the future when the sun is expanding into a red giant, and you just appear in the middle of a red giant and you're just dead, So that has applications there, I'm saying. But probably not going to see anything like that. I also threw out the possibility that the time fruit gives you the ability to at least look into the future first before you make the jump, because Toki was very specific with that 20 years. She was like, I'm going to send you scabbards 20 years into the future with this prophecy that the Kousuke Clan is going to reign supreme. So I don't know if it's like clairvoyance or if she can tell, like it's like fortune telling with like Madame Charlie or something, where Toki could like look and peer 20 years into the future and be like, oh, if I send them 20 years into the future, will Kaido and Orochi be defeated? Yes. okay, I'm going to send them 20 years into the future. I don't know if that's how it worked, but she set 20 years specifically, or maybe she just herself figured that that would give you enough time to gather allies or something like that. There has to be a reason why she chose 20 years specifically, all right? Especially since she was married to Odin, and he was the daimyo of Kuri, and Toki, and Odin were, very much beloved by their, their people, and the scabbards liked them, and they were good rulers. So, Toki cared about the people of Wano, considering also she was from there originally, it seems. She would not want the people of Wano to suffer longer than they would have to. So you'd think, like, I'm going to send you into the future by 5 years. The 5 years is still a really long time. I mean, if she sent them into the future 5 years, a lot of the people would have still been able to fight, like Ashura Doji and all of his men. They wouldn't have really been aged at all. They still would have been able to fight, and Kaido and Orochi always thinks they're still alive, no matter how much time passes. But Kaido and the rest of the Beast Pirates, they would be like, oh yeah, they've been dead for 5 years. So she chose 20 for a reason. So I'm going to throw out the idea that there is some way that she can peer into the future first using her power before she activates it, okay? But like I said, we don't know when she got this power, and we don't know when she started using it, okay? Because, yeah, she was born 830-something years ago, and she appears at age 26 right now, well, 30 years ago. But she made several jumps in between those. It was mentioned that there was a rumor that she had been jumping through time many times before that. She didn't just make that big jump from, like, Void Century all the way to meeting Odin, okay? And we also know this because when Toki was being chased by Karma and the Octopus pirates, she was being cornered by them, and she saw really no way out of this, so she was like, okay, I guess I got to escape into the future again. She said it very matter-of-factly. She just said it like, oh, I guess I got to jump into the future again. So it seems to imply she's not brand new to using this power. At that point, she's been at least making a couple of jumps before then. For all we know, she could have been born during the Void Century. Well, she was definitely born during the Void Century, but she could have gotten the power at like age 10, and she could have jumped 100 years into the future at age 10, and then lived about 1 or 2 years in that time period, and then jumped forward another 100 years, and then spent 3 years living in that time period, then jumped forward another century in like 2 months, and then she had to leave for a reason. This could have happened like literally dozens of times if there's really no limit to how many times you can use this power. It is a really strong power. I mean, the ability just to send yourself through time, so it might be taxing for her. It might, drain her a little bit. There might be a cooldown period where she can't like jump to the future, then jump to the future, then jump to the future like that. But from what we've seen, she was at least very used to using it. Okay, so few things to clarify from the review, all right? Because just looking at this from, learning about it in the chapter, I said a few things, and I just want to clarify some stuff. Okay, so the first thing I brought up was her name, Toki Amasuki. It uses the kanji for heaven and the kanji for moon. Kozuki uses the kanji for light and the kanji for moon, all right? And if you look at her garb here, the symbol that's on her, outfit there, it's very clearly, a crescent moon, which is also the symbol of the Kousuke Clan. We see that on the ankles of the people that are allies with them. And, of course, it's different from the modern equivalent of the Kousuke symbol, but there's definitely something there. There's even, like, maybe a little squiggle there that looks like it could be a bird, and there's obviously a bird or a crane being represented in the Kousuke Clan crest today. So, yeah. Because of that, I assumed maybe the Kousuke Clan 800 years ago, beyond that, during the Void Century, they were not called the Kousuke Clan. They were referred to as the Amasuki Clan, and just over the generations, the name changes. It's still possible that could be the case, but just a few things to bring up. So, when Nekomamushi was explaining the history of the road poneglyph to the Straw Hat crew, he mentioned that over 800 years ago, the Kousuke Clan, and he mentions them by name, the Kousuke Clan, were the stonemasons that created the road poneglyph. Also, in that secret cave in the whale forest, I guess in the tree cave at Zou, you see the Kousuke family crest over the road poneglyph, and apparently that has been there ever since the promise began, which is like 800 something years ago. So that would indicate that, yes, indeed, 800 years ago, at least when the poneglyphs were created and the minks received said road poneglyph from the Kousuke clan, they were referred to as the Kouzukis, and they had that same symbol. So that seems to indicate that Toki is not part of that family, that clan directly. I guess you could always explain it away. You could say that Nekomamushi, he didn't feel it necessary to bring up because it was like particulars. He's like, well, the Kousuke Clan wasn't really called the Kousuke Clan back then. They were called the Amasuki Clan. But anyway, maybe Nekomamushi felt like, that wasn't important. Or then again, maybe just because of the centuries, they just never told them about that. You know, it's like, keep in mind, this happened a really, really long time ago. Let's say it happened. Let's say the Minks received the road poneglyph 800 years ago, and they were called the Amasuki Clan. But then a couple hundred years later, because the Minks were still allied with, the Kousuke Clan at this point, it wasn't like they were completely in the dark for 800 years, okay? It seems they still knew each other, so yeah. Maybe at some point, maybe like 500, 400 years ago, the Amasuki Clan changed the Kousuke Clan. They repainted the crest in the whale forest tree, and Nekomamushi, the only thing he was ever told, him and Inuarashi were only ever told that it's the Kousuke Clan. Maybe he did know it, they used to be called something else, but that's not really important at that particular moment. The important thing is explaining the history and the fact that the Kousuke Clan were the ones that created the road poneglyphs. It's not really important to have the Straw Hats know what they were called 800 years ago. It was 800 years ago. I mean, like, they're called the Kousuke Clan right now, okay? So, I guess at the end of the day, it's sort of like, what does it matter? Very clearly, Toki has some connection to Wano. She very clearly has some connection to the Kousuke Clan. I guess it doesn't really matter if she was part of the clan itself or she was just part of maybe a retaining clan. One that, like, okay, the Kousuke Clan's the main family, the Amasuki Clan are like their retainer family, okay, where the servants and their loyal vassals come from. I mean, either way, she obviously has connections to Wano, okay. So, also in the review, I talked about, okay, why was Toki making these time jumps? I thought that maybe it was like a mission she was given. As in, the Kousuke Clan back in the day create the road poneglyphs, and all of the poneglyphs, really, the Ryo poneglyphs included, and all the history ones, the ones that talk about the ancient weapons, and the road poneglyphs, and they gave out these poneglyphs to all of their allies in the world. I made a whole video about that where I talk about that, where, hey, the Nefeltari family is the only family out of those 20 that started the world government that decided to not live in Marijois, and they got a poneglyph. So that seems like the Kousuke Clan would trust them because they're not like all the other celestial dragons. They're not really celestial dragons. They defected, okay? The Golden City of Shandora, or El Dorado, they had a poneglyph. Okay, that makes sense. They were probably not fans of the world government either. So maybe on top of sending out all these poneglyphs to all their allies all over the world, they sent Toki on a mission into the future to be like a guardian, to protect them, to make sure they were made sure that they got to where they needed to be in the future. Now, that's a very interesting plot point and everything like that, but when you think about it, it really doesn't make much sense. For one thing, Toki is just one person, alright? She is one person on her own, traveling through the passages of time, alright? She can't really keep track of all these poneglyphs at once, considering there's 30 of them, okay? Also, she doesn't seem to be all that strong physically. When she was faced off against all of the Toctopus pirates and Karma, she held out her sword and she was ready to fight, but she kind of admitted to herself that she was kind of outnumbered and there's really nothing for her to do other than just jump into the future so she could escape. That's really the only option she had there. So yeah, I'm sure she knows how to use a sword. I'm sure she's a pretty decent warrior, but she's not like some like ungodly powerful, like, I am the guardian of the poneglyphs, here for 800 years, protecting their holy visage from being, stolen or taken by the world government, and they have some godly powers at her hands, probably nothing like that, beyond just the ability to transport into time, right? So that doesn't seem to be the case. Maybe the initial reason why she left the Void Century is because it was the Void Century. Holy crap, the world government's taking over, they're burning everything down, they're controlling the world, they're gonna win, there's no way the D-Clan failed or whatever. Toki, you have the power to just get out of here, you need to escape, and you need to get back to Wano at some point, and maybe the people back then gave Toki, a message. Maybe not necessarily like you need to protect all the poneglyphs, but like something that only the people back then knew about, and that information has been lost in the centuries. And then they told Toki, take this information, go into the far future, find your way back to the land of Wano, give this information to them, and then something important will happen, right? Now, here's where it gets fun. Toki is not at Wano 30 years ago. back during Odin's flashback. She's on some random island in the New World, and she's trying to find her way back to Wano. Interesting, because the way that we see her time fruit work, she can send people through time, but not through space. It doesn't seem like she can transport them to other areas of the globe. Whenever she sends you into the future, you pop in right where you left. Or, I guess, at least a few stories above, because when she used her powers to send the scabbards into the future, they were in the castle, and they appeared like, you know, couple dozen feet above the castle, and just poof, and then they just landed, okay? But it was still the same spot. That's what I'm trying to get across here. It's not like Kinemon and Kanjuro and everybody got scattered to the winds and ended up in some other part of the world. Then again, I guess it's possible she could do that. She just chose not to, because when Toki was sending the scabbards into the future, she's like, they need to protect Wano. I'm going to make sure that when I send them into the future, they're going to appear right here. Maybe she could have sent them into some other part of the world, but she chose not to do that. I only bring this up because of the theory that Wano is a land that was constructed, you know, it's not a naturally occurring nation. All of the different lands of Wano are all different islands at one point that were on their own. That explains the rapidly different weather patterns on each region. Like, Ringo is snowy and like a winter island. Hakuma is clearly autumn. You know, the flower capital is perpetually like in a spring kind of climate. So I like the theory that maybe it was Ors or the ancient giant race a really long time ago took these individual islands and they all towed them together to create the land of Wano that currently exists. So let's say perhaps there was an original land of Wano 800 years ago, but it was only one of the islands that exist right now. Like, let's say it was just the flower capital back then, or just the landmass of the flower capital where Mount Fuji is. Not very big in terms of Wano right now. That's where Toki grew up. That's where the Kousuke Clan lived, and that's where the poneglyphs were created and everything like that. Then she decided to do the time jump, let's say 100 years into the future, or maybe multiple 100 years into the future, but by that point, the land of Wano was moved, towed to its current position, and then that's where Wano exists right now. So when she made the time jump, she ended up, you know, it's difficult to say she ended up in the middle of the ocean because she's a devil fruit user, but maybe she ended up on some other landmass or like on a boat or something. It's like, holy crap, where'd Wano go? And that's how she ended up getting lost, and she wasn't sure where it was, and then from that point onward, she just kept jumping further and further and further in the future. Every time she jumps, you know, geography had to shift maybe a little bit, maybe not on like a grand scale where like continents shifting over millions of years or anything like that, but, you know, things change a little bit, you know, especially in the world of One Piece where you have like awakened Logia users and everything running around. You could have had a moment where she was on a nice lush green island, transport, you know, 100 years into the future, and then, like, it's a desert because someone with the awakened Sunasuna no Mi was on the island. There was, like, a big battle on the island. It warped the island, you know? So she kept getting more lost and lost and lost until the point where she meets Odin 30 years ago, and she's like, I want to go to Wano, I need to get back there, a very important reason, okay? And Odin was just like, I just escaped from there, I don't want to go back there. Now, we know that, yeah, Toki is eventually going to return to Wano, because that's where Momo was born, and Hiyori as well, so yeah, and then Toki, that's where she laid down her life, so she's going to return to Wano at one point. Her wish is going to be realized. What's going to happen, though, when she finally gets back? You know, is she going to tell the Shogun something, or is she going to try to find something that was at Wano, something that was hidden 800 years ago that only she knows where it's located, maybe some information that she's going to tell that nobody else knew? I don't know, that's the thing. So yeah, it's a lot of really interesting things you gotta look at here with Toki. You know, like back when we first found out about her, like we saw that flashback, it was just in the anime, that silhouette where we see her and Hiyori and Momo, you know, we talked about how she could travel through time. I just assumed she was from some distant land during the Void Century, left, and then just found her way to Wano by accident. Now that we get to see her like this, with the Wano clothing and the katana and her name, and it's like her full name, and it's like, wow, okay, yeah, this is interesting. She's actually from Wano originally. That opens up a whole bunch of other questions. Also, I want to bring this up. So she has the Toki no Mi, and her name is Toki. There's a reason for that. There's no reason that's just a coincidence, okay? Now, I guess you could always say she ate the fruit when she was younger, and when she started transporting through time, she just called herself Toki after her ability. It's possible. Or it could be that maybe that because think about how powerful that fruit is. Maybe the people of Wano, for centuries, well before the Void Century, had access to the devil fruit, the Toki Toki no Mi. And they were, like, passing it down to, like, you know, like a priestess or somebody really of importance. Like, you know, you will bear the power of the Toki Toki no Mi that we could use in times of absolute emergency. And then when, you know, they're getting old, the next person in line will be given that ability. And maybe they're named Toki for the sake of the devil fruit. Like, this is the honor, you know, of having the same name as the previous, you know, like the avatars sort of thing, you know, kind of like that, where it's like Toki was born and it's like, okay, this child would be the next recipient of the Toki Toki no Mi. Her name will be Toki, as in all the other users were named Toki. She gets the power, and then she has it, and she was brought up to understand what the power could really do and how she could use it and all stuff like that. I just wanted to throw that out there. Or she could just call herself Toki, because it's like she's been jumping through time so much, it's like, you know what, just call me Toki, you know, because I'm the time girl, just call me the time girl, right? Okay. So yeah, and where's the power of the fruit right now? I think I brought that up when I did the Time Fruit video proper, but I think most people are going to point to Hiyori right now. Why hasn't Hiyori used it? Well, you know, it was probably something she learned from her mom. If she does have it, only use it when it's, like, seriously, like, a moment where it's like all hope is lost and you have to use it. You know, maybe also her mother told her that, like, I sent them into the future 20 years. I have hope that when they arrive in 20 years, everything will be okay. So please refrain from using the fruit until then. Like, when they arrive in 20 years, everything will be okay. Maybe Toki also felt it was like a fail-safe. It's like, okay, honey, here's the deal, because Hiyori was left. I die, I have to give you my fruit. And then Kawamatsu took Hiyori and took her away and everything like that. But before that happened, Toki was like, I'm going to die and give you my power. And, you know, after I die, this, like, maybe she picked a fruit out of the garden or something. Like, when I die, this apple will turn into my devil fruit. You need to take this and you need to eat it, Hiyori. Hiyori's like 6 at this point. And Kawamatsu's there too. Maybe that can explain it there. Maybe she didn't do it right at that moment. Maybe, you know, Kawamatsu took the fruit and, like, I'll make sure she gets it, Lady Toki, don't worry. He's like, whatever. So it's like, here's the fruit. Here's my power, because I can't let this get in the hands of Kaido or Orochi. If in 20 years from now, when they arrive, and they fight against Orochi and Kaido, and they still lose, use this power and get everybody out of there. That's like the fail-safe. That's like their Hail Mary pass. That's like, all right, 20 years, the battle is on. This battle right now that we're in the manga in the present with Luffy and the Straw Hats and the Heart Pirates and the Minks and everybody, if that fails, and they're about to be all killed by Kaido, you know, just use this power and just escape into like 100 years into the future. Just get the hell out of there. That's your best bet. You know, so maybe that's the case right now, but, you know, where this fruit is a big deal because of how powerful it is. It seems like Orochi and Kaido don't have it in their possession, because they definitely would have used it at this point to, like, rule all futures, you know. So yeah, I'm going to assume it's either in the possession of Hiyori or Hiyori's consumed it. And let me know in your comments below where you think this is going to go. You know, how do you think she's going to fall for Odin? That's another question. Do you think she's just going to fall for Odin just like everybody else? Because, like, you're the most magnificent Chad that ever did Chad. Even in her time, Chad is a universal, right? Or is, like, going to be something else that Odin's going to do that's going to make them, you know, fall madly in love? I don't know how that's going to go, so comment below and how that's going to work. So anyway, yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. And, you know what? Honestly, I think I'm just going to head back to the turtle time now. I honestly, everything was working out okay. I was freaked out at first, but the infrastructure was a lot better. I saw some turtle-based spaceships in the distance, so I think everything's going to be working out here. All right. Later, everybody. Sorry, guys. Forgot about Barry. All right, later. Steven Universe Future, here we are. I got that song stuck in my head so hard right now. So hard. That episode with the 2 pearls, oh god, it was so just... Oh, this show.